Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Wilhelm Scream, and welcome back to the channel for more Destiny 2 news and intel. Number of topics to discuss in today's video, which will include some glitches, a new exotic, as well as some free power and some updates that we will be getting very shortly, as well as a bunch of stuff you probably want to jump on Destiny 2 as soon as possible in order to pick up. But before we get into all that information, I just want to remind everybody, if you enjoyed today's video and the information, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a lot. And remember to turn on those bells, the post notifications, so you never miss out on any future Destiny 2 content like this. You can also follow me on Instagram. It'll be linked in the description box down below. And remember, any of those things I just mentioned also enter you to any future giveaways on this channel. We do one every 1,000 subscribers, so you never want to miss out. And when we reach 100,000 subscribers on the channel, we'll be giving away a new console or a video card if you play on PC. You can also stick around till the end of the video for that secret hashtag you can leave in the comment section for another entry into the next giveaway for this video. Remember, we do those secret hashtags on all videos. So if you haven't done this on a previous piece of content on this channel, you can always go back, check out another video, and of course, do it again. I'm actually on my Hunter today, something you don't see that often, but there is a reason to it, so we'll cover that in just a moment. But remember to pick up anything at the Eververse store in the next 24 hours if there was any of these items you wanted. There was some really good ones, I have to say, this week, because tomorrow we will have our weekly reset, and all of that stuff will be disappearing. Also, over at Commander Zavala, if you didn't get a chance to pick up your Tier 5 sword, I would suggest everybody head over there. At least pick it up for power's sake, as this is, of course, a high-powered reward. But cool to see that they brought Tier 5s this week. Hopefully they bring Tier 5s next week. Also, remember to pick up your bonus armor. And remember to complete those triumphs for next week's rewards if you haven't yet. Over at Banshee 44, nothing too exciting today, but always remember to check every day because you never know when we're going to get some true gold. Maybe some old school gold, but still gold nonetheless. We do have a really good Chroma Rush for PvP if you're interested. The Time-Worn Wayfarer is actually also pretty good for PvP. A couple of enhanceable weapons and a craftable Thin Precipice. Remember to always pick up, or check at least, the Focus Decoding. You never know when we have the Vice weapons available. You want to pick up a crate, because the crate, of course, has the Broken Adagio perk. It's better than a Tier 5 in PvP, so check that out. It also might not be too bad in PvE, though I'm sure Tier 5s do have a little bit of an edge over it in terms of just add damage, but in PvP, no way. We do have a Nox Perennial. I do enjoy that one as well, as far as fusion rifles go. Just head down. Also, if you'd notice, on my back, currently equipped, is the old Quick Fang glitch sword, which made a lot of headway a couple of weeks ago when we had the sword hilt glitch going on. And it was unfortunate that then a lot of people didn't actually have this weapon, especially because XUR'S used to sell it every single weekend if you were on a hunter. Now, it has to be bought on a hunter, but it can be equipped to any subclass. But every week, XUR'S would sell the either hunter-specific, Titan, or Warlock-specific sword. They would always sell them every single week, or he would always sell them every single week for all three classes. So up until just a few weeks ago, they were not on rotation, or at least not a few weeks ago, a few months ago when Edge of Fate launched. However, this week, we do, if you sign in on a hunter, have the Quick Fang available. Now, of course, it's not glitched anymore. A little bit. It's a little bit glitched, but not in the same way that it was. Under the right circumstances, I guess it can do almost as much damage or about as much damage as certain swords, maybe slightly more, but it can go a little faster. Not the way it was before, though. However, you never know when it's going to be glitched again. It may happen. So don't waste time. Pick it up this time. Make sure you have one just for that future, case scenario. You never know. We also had a Lost Signal, which is a aerial denial frame grenade launcher. These are the best types of grenade launchers, so maybe pick up one of those, as well as any of these other weapons. There were some decent ones this week, a lot of enhanceable weapons. We had free trials weapons as well. We had the yesterday's question. little bit more of a deep dive on that on my Friday video if you had a chance to check it out. We do one every Friday. Now, in the coming weeks, we're also going to be, or excuse me, in the coming weeks, yes, we're going to be getting a huge power update. So I've talked about this a couple of times in the past, but on October 14th, so that's a little more than a week from now, we're going to be getting the power update to all scaling on basically any level. So right now, if you're 500 to 550, you're only getting a +1 for an A grade. You're going to be getting a +2 for an A grade. And down the line, that +1 advantage bonus. So if you were getting a +2, you're not going to be getting a +3, +3, +4 as you go down the ladder of power. But the other big thing that we're going to be getting, which I think is going to be more impactful, is all the bonus rewards will now have a chance to drop also at the power scaling, even for the higher level power players. So that's going to be a big thing. So there's a chance to get more than one +1 or +2. You might have a chance to get multiple ones. That's going to increase the power leveling substantially. So that's on October 14th. And tomorrow at the weekly reset, we are also going to be getting the new exotic mission for the exotic axe, the first one we've had in the game, the Wolf's Bane. Now, all I can say is that this better be pretty good. The exotic mission has to be good. The exotic has to be super powerful. Also, remember to leave a hashtag Archie in the comment section down below. That's the secret hashtag for today's video. If anybody didn't guess, I'm going to just run over to, what do you have over here for me? Drifter. Drifter's still here. On my hunter, I don't know what you could possibly have to give me, but I'll take it. But yes, we're going to be getting the exotic mission for the exotic axe, Wolf's Bane. A couple of things need to happen. It needs to be a good exotic mission, and the exotic, as I said, needs to be super powerful, needs to be a little bit game-breaking. Let's hope it is. Let's hope we have that next big glitch surrounding this exotic. Or the exotic mission has a really easy cheese for it. We need it. We need it right now. And I don't really share too many opinions on my channel because this is not an opinion channel. Occasionally I'll talk about some constructive criticism or, just general news of things, of bugs or things that might be affecting the community as a whole. And I have, of course, shared my opinion that we should just leave some of these glitches and exploits in the game at the moment, especially because player interest seems to be low. At least that's what people say. I don't actually know if that's true because I have to tell you, it seems like people still are very interested in Destiny 2 content on YouTube, but that might not be saying much, as a lot of people are just choosing to hate on it. And, the internet is the internet, and people love a bit of hate, or at least negative comments. I usually don't like to go negative, and I have to say, I've heard also a lot of feedback on other creators' channels that they are getting sort of roasted by their community, and people calling them this or calling them that, or saying that they're just hating on stuff, or saying that they're not hating on it enough. I have to say, I haven't felt really any of that on this channel. Not to say that you should start now. I just think that's kind of the nature of this channel. It's not something that's focused on that kind of stuff. I just sort of bring you the information. And also, I've always thought that a bit of communication back with my audience is good because it makes everybody sort of feel a little closer. And at the end of the day, I'm just a guy playing video games, and most of the people who I play with often are people who I met one way or another through my channel, and any of them would tell you that I'm pretty easy to get to know. And if I see your name, or a lot of people donated to the channel in the last few months. A lot of those people are my friends. They're actually in our group. We do raids together all the time, and you'll see a lot of them in the comment section down below. I try to be as open-ended as possible. So I think that's kind of the reason why I maybe haven't experienced that kind of feedback. And again, because I'm not like super critical, but I also give a little bit of constructive criticism now and again. There's been a lot of stuff, that being said, there's been a lot of stuff about the portal and power and whether or not we should go back to our old way of doing things with the map, with the planetary map, and just content in general. So I'm going to just give a brief little take now that we've kind of covered all the major news. Just my brief take. And feel free to disagree with me if you like. I always love to hear all your comments in the comment section down below. Always like to hear your feedback. So, you know, and of course all those things will give you entries into future giveaways. So it's worth doing. I just ask that everybody tries to keep it civil as possible. I know that might be tough, but I don't think my take is really it's not too hot. It's just kind of, you know, an idea. And I personally don't think that there was changes that really were needed. First of all, I do think we should go back to the planetary map, just for the fact that it's a unique thing. You know, when you open the directory, not to say that this page isn't good. I actually think this page isn't bad for a couple of things. One, because it shows you upcoming events. That's really nice. Maybe not a terrible place to go into the tower or the seasonal hub. And I do think a curated playlist, like one curated playlist kind of like this, with different options would be good, especially for newer players. But, I mean, I don't think there's anybody who's maybe that new. But if you are, I mean, I'm curious if you think that the portal is more interesting than all of this. Which is just strange that we have different things in different places, you know? Like, if you go into Vanguard right now, I'm sure most people don't even check. There's a Nightfall that you can go and do. And look at, you know, you can still get exotics from it. I mean, it's strange. The Crucible has different playlists in it. I mean, these things are just sitting here. Nobody knows, I don't think, that they're really there. I think because it defaults to the portal. Maybe if it defaulted to the world. But in any case, I do think we should go back to this with maybe a slightly streamlined version. I did like when there used to be more updates on the side that kind of were maybe more visible. So, you know, that's neither here nor there, though. I really don't have too much of an issue with the portal, if I'm being honest. However, I do think they should do one thing, which is, one, I think old raids, which are now farmable, by the way, and everybody can farm all the old raids, and they're all just sitting there. Wonderful content, some of the best content in the game, which people, unfortunately, don't get a chance to experience that often, are all just right here, able to be farmed on one character. You don't have to switch characters in order to get the exotics. We also have the Dual Destiny mission on the Pale Heart for exotic class items. You know, these are things that are becoming less and less well known as time goes on, and people are becoming less and less aware of how to actually get them. You know, what I did yesterday, I went into the Eternity. Remember this? I played Dares of Eternity. People are still playing Dares of Eternity, though it's probably a smaller group. But, you know, all of this is right there. It's the only other 6-player activity other than raids. And that's match made. Or you could go to the Pale Heart and you could do the, I'm not going to run into that all right now, but you could do the Excision in the Pale Heart, which is a 12-man activity. Now, I actually think that the 12-man activity should also be added to the portal. I think Dual Destiny should be added to the portal. And I think all the old raids, maybe not the current raid, but at least the majority of the old raids should be added to the portal if we're going to have a portal. And they should all be made match-made, and they should only require one thing. And I'm just curious, this is the thing I'm most curious about feedback on. If you were somebody who's never raided, if you are somebody who's never raided, never done Dual Destiny, you don't have your exotic class items, you don't have any of the raid exotics, and you've never done a raid, you've been playing this game for years. I do hear from people who've been playing this game forever, as long as I have, and they've never done one raid. All that would be required of you to get into matchmaking of a raid would be to have, under your social, your voice chat on. So this is for all cross-platform players. If you have this on when you load into a group, sort of like old Halo, if you remember Halo lobbies still, you hear the other people. And that being enabled would be the only thing, the only prerequisite in order to get into a match-made raid. For the older raids, or Dual Destiny, because, you know, there's going to be circumstances where nobody knows what they're doing. But even in those circumstances, you can figure it out, and maybe you'll have fun figuring it out. And maybe people will leave, maybe people will join, I think if somebody leaves a raid, there should be some system where somebody else can join in. And I'm sure that might be an issue in some regard. But I mean, we had Pantheon, which was just an amazing thing. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we haven't gotten that back. That's not a match-made raid or anything, but I mean, just the different raid encounters all together. It was just so great, and I feel like we're not doing enough with that. You know, the game is just not doing enough with that end game content. And I think that the goal should really be to try to get as many people into the end game content as possible, or at least have it accessible. Because right now, the end game content really isn't accessible. And really what we have is this power grind, which I'm all for a good power grind, if I have to be honest. But there needs to be a reason. There needs to be a carrot and stick, so to speak. So, for example, to get into Grandmaster Nightfalls back in the day, you needed to be at a certain level. So once you got to that certain level, you were able to get into the Grandmaster Nightfalls, or the GM Nightfalls. The GM Nightfalls had some of the best loot, the Adept weapons. So outside of raids and dungeons, the GM Nightfalls were the best source of really endgame loot. You got exotics from there, you got Ascendant Shards from there, and at the time, I mean, this changes over time, that was the best stuff and the stuff that you really wanted for the endgame content, for leveling up the best weapons, for trying out different builds. It added a level of versatility in that you got some really good loot and some really high tier weapons that you could bring into things like dungeons and whatnot, maybe even solo dungeons. But there was sort of that element of, I need to get power in order to get into the activity, in order to be able to get the best stuff. So what I think is missing right now is that if you go to the portal, for example, most of the toughest stuff is under the seasonal hub, under our, our challenges, our seasonal challenges. These activities, these are the only things that you have to get a certain power in order to do. Otherwise, you can do ultimatum on any other portal activity at 500 or 450. So, once you get into that, and that's, I think, one of those things where you don't really want to even do ultimatum difficulty at 450. You just want to continue to do Grandmaster difficulty. And even at about 500, you might just want to switch to that. But it's really not, you're going to be getting the same kind of stuff. I mean, I have full tier 5 armor weapons. I got most of those from the seasonal events in my 300 power climb to 400. So this stuff should really be the things that are awarding you the best stuff. Now, we can't go back. Tier 5 armor and weapons are already here. But if I was doing it again, I would have said that Tier 5 armor and weapons are only available from these things. That makes people want to have incentive in order to farm up power to get to this point, in order to be able to get that Tier 5 armor and weapons. And then it feels worth it, right? The other thing is, I think those things should be a little bit better, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think the Tier 5 armor sets are really good, but I would buff them to maybe have 3 bonuses. And I think that the Tier 5 weapons are not, they're good, but they're not better enough from like Tier 1 or Tier 2, where if you get a really good roll on any of that stuff, it's still going to be really good. Because our builds are so powerful, you see? The actual classes, subclasses, are just so powerful in this game that weapons become sort of secondary to some extent. Exotics are still higher, but in general, like, rolls on the weapons matter more, and the type of weapon matter more than, say, the tier. Enhanced perks and OLED and all that stuff, it does update the weapon. I'm not going to say that there's no effect, but I think there should be more of an effect. So I think what we need is just a little bit of, to put it simply, a little bit of exclusivity. And I don't mean inaccessible exclusivity, accessible to everybody, and a goalpost set up front. But essentially, you want to get up to the ability to do these things because they're going to have the best stuff and best rewards. And in the case of tier weapons and armor, they would have been, in my case, the only thing that awarded tier 5 weapons and armor. I'm sure some people will disagree with me on that, but I think it would have added incentive for a lot of people, because that's kind of how it was in D1, you know, or even in different parts of D2, as I said, with the old GM Nightfalls. The other thing is, I would say that adding old raids to matchmaking would be a good idea, as I said before, and maybe make those things have a sort of power requirement. That way, you know, if you're going into one of those things, you should expect to have people who are at least, the very least, somewhat veterans to the game up to that present point or that season. So, you know, maybe make that 450 to be able to go into the matchmaking raids and make that the difference between the other things and that we already have in the portal and whatnot. But that's just a thought. I also think exotics need to be a bit more powerful. I think everything needs to be just, there needs to be specific things that are just really broken at times. And I think we should be willing to kind of accept that, as you've heard me talk before about kind of making a certain meta like epic for a short period of time. Don't even tell us that we're doing it. Let us kind of figure it out. Just like by playing, somebody will figure it out. They'll go, wow, all of a sudden this thing is doing crazy damage, or it's giving me a ton of health. And people will latch onto that. And then you make an announcement in the game, this is Bungie, that, hey, yeah, we buffed this thing, and we're going to let it go for another 3 or 4 weeks, and then we're going to add another thing into the game. I think new exotics, like this axe that's going to be added, should be like those things. Whenever there's a new exotic added, make it, you know, make that thing just, you know, rock the house. You know what I mean? Let it just destroy. Why not? Let us have fun. 6-man activities. We're getting a new 6-man activity eventually. I'm trying to remember when that comes out. But I just hope that that is not Dares of Eternity 2.0. Not to say that Dares of Eternity isn't fun, and it was actually an amazing activity when it first came out. It was really popular. It's why it's still here 4 years later. But the thing that it was missing, in my opinion, was in-game chat. And I think we gotta just, you know, the community's, I think, small enough now where I think everybody wants to, you know, let's get everybody together as much as possible. Let's try to encourage that level of communication in the game. We got these great social spaces. You know, it'd be fun. I know that I'm sure there'll be a level of toxicity, but knowing the people that I know in game, you know, some of them won't tolerate it, and I think the majority of people are mature enough in this game to, you know, you could opt in, of course, but there should be that kind of communication, I think, and it will allow for more access to the endgame content. So let me know what you think about those things. I know this was a bit of a rant today, and you know, that's why I wanted to cover most of the information first. But always interested, as I said before, to hear all your thoughts and feedback. Let me know if you think I'm absolutely wrong on this, and I might be, but you can let me know. Thanks so much for watching. As always, I'm Wilhelm Scream. I'll be probably bringing more information on the exotic mission tomorrow, as well as the exotic axe and how to get it, so be on the lookout for that. And of course, we will see you next time. Later!